All right, guys, welcome back to Heel Report. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones here for is it a late night or is it an early morning edition of our Three Things Post-Game podcast? I've been contemplating that for the last
in that time
6 hours.
Time frame in the day where it does not deserve any distinction.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. It's 3:30 where you are.
Yeah.
It's 12:30 here, but I have to eventually walk to the car and then drive back to my hotel and finish my work. Good thing is I don't have to fly out right away. I have a 1:30 flight Pacific time, which is 4:30 your time. But by the time I finish all my work, it'll be like 2-hour nap and on to the airport. So
yeah, man,
especially here, it takes literally like 6 days to get to the airport. It took me 3 days after I landed yesterday to get my rental car and then get to my hotel.
Well, you know how it is, man. Nothing's smooth when you travel, especially when you go across the country.
Here, the traffic's. Hey, we're going to get into the game, obviously, but traffic's terrible here.
Yeah. That is
in the game had the same kind of pace. Everybody else was complaining about how long it took them to check in their hotel, like 3.5 hours. The game had the same kind of pace. It was like I was never going to get there and get my key and get into the room, and it was like this game was never going to end.
That's a good segue. That's kind of been the theme of this whole trip, it feels like, and you're absolutely right. I mean, between the 7,422 on-field reviews they had tonight and just the sheer pace of the game with California, especially in that first half, just throwing the ball every single play. Really a slow match, just a slow game tonight. It took way too long, but
that's the reason the stadium is not in the backdrop. You can kind of get a little glimpse of it.
A little bit, yeah. That's that. You get that glare when it goes directly. We had to move the camera around a little bit.
My background makes it look like I'm in like we're doing one of those little hostage videos where I'm reading the message. Hey, all is well. I'm being well fed.
No leaf blowers though. We've dealt with our fair share of leaf blowers after games trying to do these, so we'll count our blessings on that one. But AJ, let's dive into this game, man, because my brain doesn't even work anymore, really. But Carolina losing 21-18 to California.
Right, still, by the way.
God, man, it's unbelievable. I know you got work to do too, and I'm hoping I get this up by 5 a.m. 3:30 right now. I'm hoping I get this up by 5 a.m. That's my goal. I think I can do that. As long as we don't take 6 hours on this podcast, which we are firmly on pace for right now. But Carolina dropping to 2-4, 0-2 in the league, and California improving to 5-2, 2-1 in ACC play, but. Let's start with the beginning, AJ. I think there will be some positives we'll take away from this game because Belichick has been talking a lot about this team getting better and improving week by week, especially over the last few weeks with a couple of bye weeks that Carolina had to kind of get right and improve a little bit. And I think we saw some tangible evidence of that tonight for maybe the first time all season. So we will talk about some of those things later on, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with the beginning of the game.
I'm looking over there because there's 3 fire engines that just came into the stadium on the concourse. I'm not kidding.
Huh.
There's more, and cop cars.
Wonder what happened.
Who knows? It's Berkeley. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Sorry about that. That was a heavy distraction. Could you get? I'm in an enclosed part of the press box now, and I could hear the sirens pretty loud. So.
Hopefully nothing serious. I mean, we need to check the old Twitterverse and see if anything's going on, but hopefully nothing too bad or an injury. I guess we'll know by the time this is posted if it's anything newsworthy. But yeah, like I was saying though, AJ, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the beginning of the game because Carolina was a fumble on the first play, and then California scores. I think it was 4 plays later. And being on the boards, being on Twitter, being on social media, I'm sure you can say the same thing for some of the Carolina people in the press box tonight. It kind of felt like this. Oh my God, here we go again. North Carolina. All this talk over the last couple of weeks and bounce back opportunity here. You just start the game in the worst possible way. So we'll start with that, and we'll move on to some of the positives we can take away later, but. This team can learn to just start a little bit better, man, and come out the gates flying. I mean, it was the same thing against Clemson a couple weeks ago. I think it would help, but yeah, not the greatest of starts to the night for the Tar Heels, but the fortunes did change a little bit, which we'll talk about in a second.
It's an awful start. And so I posted something on the board at some point Friday, I don't know when it was. Friday's been like the longest. It's like a 40-hour day. Yeah. About the time difference, because I came in here yesterday and 11 o'clock Pacific time last night, I'm done. I had nothing left. And these guys had to play, and they didn't kick off until 10:41. Mm-hmm. So that would be an issue for a team that flew in and got in here after I did yesterday. They landed at like 5 o'clock. Pacific time. So they could have come in. They're off for a couple of days. I guess school is. There's a break, and they could have come Wednesday. I don't know why they didn't come Wednesday. So I'm thinking, okay, it's at Cal. It's on the West Coast. They had to fly all the way here. They got in at a kind of a strange time. I think they should have come in sooner. 10:30 kickoff, moved back because of Miami pulling a Miami. and also when I'm walking to the stadium, I thought I was going up Machu Picchu there for a while. As I'm walking to the stadium, I see these buses stop and the players get out, and it's like 2.5 blocks from the stadium. They haven't renovated around here, which is okay because it's really cool and it's very unique, and they got to be careful about taking away some of that. Excuse me. And there's some mystique to it. They had to walk up 2 blocks and over to get into the stadium. There's just so much of it was weird. It reminded me of the Boston College game last year, the story I've told so much that somebody in the press box say, hey, I've heard that 25 times. When Carolina, I got out of my car and I'm walking to the stadium in Chestnut Hill, and it's 39 degrees and it's raining and the wind's blowing sideways. Like, there's no way they're going to win this game. It had all the makings of there's no way they're going to win this game. And then they run back the opening kickoff. They run back every kickoff. Like, they don't think about, hey, let's start at the 25. They usually start like the 18 or 19. So they started at the 18, first play turnover. And then on top of that, it wasn't just the turnover, Jacob. It's how Cal scored. Cal had the number 124 rushing offense in America coming into this game, averaging 96 yards a game. First 2 runs, 19 yards. Third run, they get like 2, then a touchdown. So they went 25 yards on the ground in 4 plays. Like, well, there you go. Everybody that covers North Carolina had a sense that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And you thought it was over. They didn't get a first down their first 3 possessions. And then Cal honestly made some mistakes. I thought Cal's play calling was pitiful. If I covered Cal, I would write that the play calling was pitiful. In Freddie Kitchens' defense, what would you call that he hasn't called? Because it didn't look like a lot of stuff really can work, right? At least before tonight. But they're play calling, they're running the ball against Carolina, and the best way to take a team out of its game early under these conditions would be to beat it in a way that they didn't think that they would get beaten. Carolina certainly was more concerned about the rollouts and everything else, and they were running right at them. So I thought this game's going to be a long game. I got a bunch of stuff popping up on my laptop here. So I thought it was going to be a long game, and we'd all have our stuff written by halftime. But you've got to credit the Tar Heels for not wilting when it was a very wiltable situation. So it was a terrible start, but it didn't beat them. No. So when they've hurt themselves and opponents have been able to cash in, it's wilted this team before. And it didn't wilt them tonight. I do think Cal had a lot to do with that. But I'm going to step away from that and say Carolina did too. We saw some resilience. That the body language was awful early.
Yeah.
When that happened, oh my gosh, it was so bad. Mm-hmm. But they somehow found a way to make a game of it, and they stayed around. And Cal kind of screwed up some opportunities. Cal missed a couple of picks it should have had. Mm-hmm. One would have been a pick 6. Another one should have been in the end zone. And Carolina was pretty resilient. It kind of hung around, Jacob. So I know that the beginning was bad, but Carolina didn't let it snowball. And it has allowed the previous P4 teams to snowball against them. And it didn't happen tonight. Although I don't know if Cal's better than UCF. Maybe Carolina's maybe they really did make progress during the bye week. Or maybe it's just one of those nights where sometimes you're not always terrible, and maybe Cal kind of played down to the competition. I don't know.
Yeah, I think 2 things can be true at the same time, and I think I kind of lean towards both of those things kind of being true in this situation. I never felt like Cal was great tonight, and I also felt like North Carolina showed some tangible progress and played better, especially at specific positions, than maybe we've seen all season. But let me just go through some of the stats real quick, because overall, a relatively even game statistically. I mean, 294 yards to California, 293 to North Carolina. UNC had 18 first downs. Cal had 19. Cal did run 7 more plays than North Carolina, but Carolina averaged 4.5 yards a play. California averaged 4.1. I think these were the 2 biggest discrepancies. Statistically, they were, but I think these were really the 2 biggest differences in the game, and I think help illustrate the points we're kind of making right now. penalties. I mean, 9 penalties for 80 yards for California. Carolina just had 4. I mean, especially on that drive. We'll talk about the Lecoq fumble later on, but California gave North Carolina opportunities on that drive because they kept giving away stupid penalties. And on the flip side, AJ, 3 turnovers for North Carolina, including the Nathan Lecoq fumble on the goal line, which essentially kind of was the nail in the coffin for the Tar Heels with how the rest of the game played out. So an even game statistically, I thought California didn't look great tonight. And as I said earlier, I think Carolina looked tangibly better in certain positions in certain moments. So it felt like it's those 2 stats that really separated. But in hindsight now, AJ, that we can look back, you can, and I'm not trying to pick on Nathan Lecoq. I mean, I hate it for him, but you're looking at that play like, if he scores that, we may be having and very, very likely would be having a very different conversation right now about how this game played out. So very even game statistically, but it's these little things. And if you go on the road in the ACC, man, especially across the country, I don't care who you're playing in the league, you give the ball away 3 times, especially this Carolina team that struggles to score points in the first place. You're not going to win many football games. And in the end, it kind of felt like it came down to that.
Yeah, one of the turnovers was that last play in which they were going backwards. It was going to be a safety eventually if they didn't turn the ball over. Mm-hmm. I'm joking a little bit, but they were going backwards. That was an interesting play. It's the 2 turnovers that bookended the game, basically.
Yeah.
And you could see it on Bill's face. I'm 8 feet, 10 feet away from him, if that, in post game, and you could see it on his face. It was interesting. He didn't say much at all. He even gave an "it is what it is" answer, which is just mitt. When it's just vintage. We've got to see some vintage Bill on the road this year, but you could see it. And they had a game. They won a game. They didn't win a game, but they had the game right there to win. It was not just in their grasp. It was like this. Mm-hmm. And the poor kid fumbles. A defensive player made Austin. I can't remember, Brent Austin maybe knocked it loose and then recovered it. And stuff happens, man. But Clower had the turnover on the first play. Mm-hmm. So that's 14 points right there with 2 Carolina turnovers and 25 total yards for Cal. I mean, I know this is kind of a silly thing, but just for the sake of discussion, you give Carolina 7 more, that's 25. You take away 7 from Cal, it's 25-14 game. In between those 2 turnovers, Carolina outplayed Cal, in the sense that they did enough to generate a higher score on the scoreboard. Neither team was very good. These are not good football teams. But even in competitive game, Carolina did everything it really needed to do to get a win, but maybe everything but maybe 1 or 2 things, and that's just hold on to the ball. Mm. He holds it. The ball comes out maybe a foot before it crosses the plane.
Mm-hmm. He was very close, yeah.
I feel bad for the kid. We talked to Gio Lopez, Tyler Thompson, and we got Kobe Paysor. There's a positive for you, the return of Kobe Paysor, really. We got to talk to them after the game, and they were standing up for Nathan big time. Mistakes happen. Gio said, look, man, I made those turnovers against TCU and they got scores, and I had turnovers against UCF. Everybody made mistakes. I thought the defense did a lot of really good things, but there were a couple of drives where they hurt themselves, allowing 3rd and long conversions, especially over the middle of the field. I mean, again, Brian Harsin should be blasted by the Cal media because they had a ton of success going right at the heels over the middle, and then kept trying to go wide. And by the way, Freddie with the little flare screen, they got like -5 yards every time they ran. They got to take that thing and just chop it off the playbook. It doesn't work. Once you try 80 times, it doesn't work. Maybe there shouldn't be an 81st. So there's a lot of learning to go around by both offensive coordinators tonight. But I think Brian Harsin is the one who gets the very, very low grade for Cal, because they could have been better running the ball and could have established some control of the game, but they didn't do it. And they should have thrown over the middle more than they did, although they did have a touchdown wide. They had a little bit of success on that first drive to start the second half. But Carolina did enough to win a football game tonight for the most part. They just had a couple of mistakes, and they were massive mistakes. And it's wild when you think about it. I don't know what the number of offensive plays that were run in this game, probably about 160, or about 130.
Yeah, Cal had 71, Carolina had 64, so you're better at math than I am, but 130 something, yeah.
Yeah, 130, 140 offensive plays in the game. You have 7, 8 months that teams prepare, basically 9 months. They prepare in various ways to get here, and a couple of fumbles kind of keep the negative train going. I think Carolina fans are going to be a little bit optimistic that they were competitive, and they're going to be grateful they were competitive, and the team they really fought. I thought they showed some culture today for the first time this season. And I don't know if it's truly culture, if it was just one of those things. The player, Gio Lopez, said that the onslaught of negativity after the Clemson game actually brought the team together. He said that they had to insulate just so they can keep it out because there was so much of it. And he said that was sort of the galvanizing time, and that he felt like they'd come together a little bit more since then. It's interesting that he says that. If it's true, it'll carry over to next week. So I think that maybe it was true for this and it worked here. And I'm not saying, I don't want to make it sound like I'm doubting him, but that's the kind of thing that has to connect. It can't be a flare-up thing. It has to be connected. So, okay, we were really close to getting a win here. We did a couple things wrong on both sides of the ball. Let's see if we can clean that up and next week have a chance to get a win against a much better team coming into Chapel Hill. So you have to, as much picking at negativity as we've done, and you and I have been extremely critical of this football team for just reason, for just cause. Everything about it, highly critical. And it was all deserving. It was all justified. I think tonight, there's still a ton of stuff to pick at. I mean, they're not good on. People are celebrating the offense doing better, and they had 293 yards. That's awful.
I know.
That's awful. But they got a few first downs. Gio actually moved the chains. Gio said tonight this is the best he's felt physically since before the season started because he had that car crash before the TCU game. You could see it. You could see him throwing tighter balls tonight. You could see him having a better, more of a line on his passes. You know, he didn't float stuff as much like he was before. I also think it helps that Kobe Paysour stepped up and was the Kobe Paysour of 2022 and 2023. Mm-hmm. And that made a difference because teams have been so uber focused on Jordan Shipp. Now they got to also pay attention to Kobe. And because Kobe can run every route. So can Jordan, but they're both very good at dragging over the middle and doing some of that stuff. I think that kind of softened the defensive pinch and allowed for some of the running. Benjamin Hall had a really good game. It's like, where's that been? I asked Bill, I said, did you see it coming? Of course, he just goes, oh, yes, we got they do this, they do that.
Didn't tell you
the answer, really. But did you see it coming? Because Caleb Hood was your starting running back in the opener. He's retired. Then it was Damon June from out of nowhere. He went from 7th on the depth chart starting in a week. And now we have Benjamin Hall. So it's interesting. It would be interesting to know what that trajectory has looked like, or if it's, hey, let's just give him the load and see what he can do. And he had a couple good runs and they ran with it. Probably the latter, simply because I think right now, and a good sign for them is if you sense you have a hot guy, like in basketball, guys hitting a bunch of shots, you leave him in there. Mm-hmm. And it works because what we saw from him tonight, we saw some footwork, didn't know was there before. We also saw him bowl dudes over, but I thought he hit the holes harder than he has previously. I also think at times there were holes that weren't there previously.
I thought it was the offensive line's best performance of the season, really, for big chunks of it. I'm not saying it was a complete product, but I thought overall it was the best game they've had this season.
I'm going to agree with you on that. I want to give Gio some credit here. I thought Gio handled pressure better when he had it. In fact, he picked up their first down. Their first conversion on 3rd down was Gio scrambling. And he gave up. He was going to give up. He was going to get hit and didn't end up getting hit as hard as he could have been hit, but he was prepared to give up his body to get that first down. And kudos to him, given the fact that he's just had 90 different body parts injured here the last 2 months. So that shows, I think that's some of the mindset he was talking about. To validate what he said, going back to that, I think you saw it in the fact that they didn't wilt out of the gate. You saw that Cal had a couple of very long scoring drives. But by and large, I don't know how many drives they had over 31 yards, but I think it was 2. It may have been a third one in there in the fourth quarter. I have to go back and check. But they were getting off the field. Even though Cal would convert a third and long, they'd get a stop and force a punt a couple plays later. Because it had that look where, they were like 3rd and 13 in their own 9 or something, and they convert a 23-yard play. Like, that touchdown's coming on this drive. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen. So there was some resiliency there as well. So they look like a club that had made some progress, but they also played an awful team. And not an awful team, a team that's been bad lately. Let's be honest. 34-0 loss to San Diego State a month ago. Then they barely win at BC. And then 2 weeks ago, Duke comes in here. It's 21-7 Cal in the middle of the second quarter. Duke scores 38 straight points to close out the game.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? Carolina shouldn't worry about that. Carolina fans shouldn't worry about that. You wanted to see some progress, and you saw it. It wasn't life-changing progress. It's not like you win a lottery ticket and it's like $9 million. You got like a $100 scratch off tonight.
Yeah.
Not bad. Hey, it's progress. $100, man. Go out to dinner. Have a good meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now they have to back it up next week against a much tougher opponent. But they'll be at home.
That's true. Yeah, I think a couple of things. I agree with what you said there. I tweeted at halftime. I put it on the boards. I can't remember one of those. About, it kind of, I called it like the first half in particular felt a little bit like you have to crawl before you walk type of half, where like it wasn't exceptional. There wasn't really anything you could look at and be like, man, that was like really good, but it was improved and Carolina was in the game. And as we've seen against Power 4 competition, I mean, we haven't been able to say that at a lot of chunks of halftime. And there's been games that have been over in the first half, maybe all of them who they played against P4. So you're kind of looking at that. But the main thing I said with that is it's one of those if you build on it in the second half. And I think Carolina, again, showed some things, had an opportunity to win it, maybe should have won it with how it played out. So I guess you could sit here and maybe say, they built on it and made it competitive and almost won. It's kind of how I look at this game as a whole now, though, AJ, as you kind of alluded to there, of this is a step in the right direction. I can walk away from this game, unlike TCU, unlike UCF, unlike Clemson, and give you some kind of tangible positives you can look at and say, if that trend continues, or if that guy continues to play like that, or if the O-line continues this trajectory, or if the defense continues to make some of the stops they did, this team can continue to get better and maybe stack up some wins down the line. But none of that really matters, and all that kind of goes out the window, as you said. If next, Saturday against Virginia at 4:00 in the afternoon, we're hopping on one of these three things, talking about another loss. This has to be built upon. It's unfortunate Carolina couldn't get the win tonight, but there are some things that I think you can feel good about if you're a Carolina fan. End of the day, though, I think you have to keep this in mind. This is a business of winning. As I've said many times, Bill Belichick is here to win games. Carolina did not win the game tonight, and I think there was opportunities, as we talked about, to win the game. So that part is disappointing. But you got to start somewhere, right? Like, I don't want to just come away from this podcast like, oh, Carolina lost again, all doom and gloom. I think there are things you can take away from this and say, okay, let's keep an eye on these things, and let's see if they translate to next week. And if they don't, then maybe this was just a fluke. And if they do, then maybe, as Belichick's talked about, okay, this team is getting better. Time will tell, I think, how this result is maybe viewed.
Yeah, you said crawl before walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, if this was actually crawling, some of the resiliency things will show up next week too. Doesn't mean performance will. It doesn't mean Kobe's going to catch a bunch of balls again. It doesn't mean that they're going to get off the field enough. I mean, they gave up some third down conversions and stuff tonight, but they only gave up 21 points. And one of those was a 25-yard drive. They gave up 2 long touchdown drives tonight. So if they're crawling tonight was a crawl, we're going to see some positive things about resiliency and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that they did make some adjustments tonight. Gio had some success rolling and throwing, threw some stuff over the middle. There were a couple of ones too that I said earlier he should have had 2 balls intercepted, but he could have had a couple more receptions as well thrown in there. or we'll find out if this was just falling out of the crib.
Mm-hmm.
If they fell out of the crib, okay, well, they're not in the crib anymore. And this is also Berkeley. Now, Cal's 5-2, but and they beat Minnesota here by 13 points. It seems like forever ago. Minnesota beat Nebraska tonight. Minnesota's got a pretty solid team. They got 5 wins, I think. So Cal beat a solid team, maybe a good team. We don't know yet if Minnesota's good. So that's there. And they should be better now, but they haven't played that well lately. So we'll find out what this means, which is what we talk about at the end of these podcasts. And this is a tough one to do because it kind of threw us for a loop in how it went. Like I thought they were either going to get blown out or it was going to be a higher scoring close game.
Me too.
Just because I thought they could have. Maybe Cal's defense wasn't that good. I know that their numbers are not terrible, but I thought that this might be one of those games where Carolina, with that other extra week, we would actually see a lot of new wrinkles. We saw one new wrinkle. I call it the Chuck Amato play. Chuck Amato used to have this whole offensive line up over on the side except the center, and they'd run a play, and they got 37 yards out of it. Gio hitting Kobe Pacer. I thought we would see more of that stuff, didn't. So I'll ask and answer, and you can do the same. What does this mean? I think it just means that this team lost another game. Back in August when we did our podcast predicting the season, nobody had them losing this game. I said, it could be tough. I think you said they could be dangerous. Friday night at Cal, place is going to be going crazy. The Belichick factor didn't create the kind of buzz that it would have if this team was better. I think they've gotten pounded so much in the media that the curiosity factor was just seeing him and to see if somebody else was out on the sideline before the game too. The student's body is right behind the bench. They had some interesting chants, but other than that, it was just a football game between two bad teams. And neither one of them did a whole lot. I think if you're Cal, you're thinking, okay, maybe there was some regression. If you're Carolina, yeah, there's some positive things because they didn't get blown out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're positive as you didn't get blown out and the guys fought, okay, you got to start somewhere. That's why I said falling out of the crib. But we'll know a lot more next week. I actually will be coming back from Salt Lake City during the game. So you'll probably be on here with Noah doing a 3 things, and I'll do a video later that night. I'll come home, I'll watch it. I'll tape it, and I'll watch it. It would be great if I could have a supersonic jet that gets me back, and I could be there in Chapel Hill for that one too, because I think next week is more interesting now than it was 10 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, because, look, stuff happens. And who knows? Maybe leaving here feeling like, we can compete. Maybe that gives them the best week of practice they've had all year, and they have a better game plan, and there's not as much self-doubt. Because I thought it was interesting. There was one writer from here, I think he does some stuff for ESPN, was asking Gio Lopez. No, he was asking Kobe and Tyler Thompson, Kobe Pacer and Tyler Thompson, what does success look like for you guys moving forward? And Kobe gave the very veteran response that he would, because he's a sharp guy and knows how to do this. We just got to keep having good practices, stacking days, that kind of thing. And he pressed him on it and said, yeah, but what about wins? And Kobe said, right now, we just got to get better and the wins will take care of itself. Sort of an NFL mentality, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he pressed him a little bit more and said, so you could continue to get better, but if you don't win, that's success. And Kobe's like, no, I didn't say that. So that's the determining factor. Getting better is great. They got to get some wins. You're paying a ton of money to get wins. You're paying a ton of money in enduring a nightmare in publicity. And much of it is completely valid. So you got to get some wins. Losing by 3 points in Berkeley in the grand scheme right now, it feels pretty good because at least it wasn't a blowout. But in December or January, when you look back on it, you're like, man, A, missed opportunity. B, how'd you lose to Cal?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100%. It has to be built on. You can look at it and say, well, they barely lost, and that's the win, I guess, for this season. I think that's just kind of a unfortunate indictment on where this program is at in this still early stages, the Bill Belichick experiment. But man, just one more thing I want to bring up. I'm torn because, and I wanted to bring this up earlier in the podcast when we were talking about it, but it was funny. I was watching the game and I'm like, man, like Gio Lopez looks a lot better tonight. And then you go look at his stat line and you're like, okay, 19 for 35, 167 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess he was a little bit better, but again, that's kind of an indictment on where this team's been. You talked about Benjamin Hall earlier. I'm like, man, I thought he looked really good tonight too. And 14 carries, 68 yards. It's none of these guys are like lighting up the stat sheet. You know what I mean? But you're still sitting here watching the game. Like, I've seen some tangible progress. And I think that's what you're kind of alluding to here is like, I don't want to call this like a moral victory because you can't. This is not why you hired Bill Belichick to lose by 3 at California and, drop to 2-4 on the season. But I'm still leaving this game at like, and I think a lot of Carolina fans are too, like, do I get my hopes? Like, could this be something? Could this season maybe turn around a little bit? But still, you're 2-4 and 0-2 in ACC play. So I've been having this battle in my head almost all night of like, was this a lot of progress, or what has it just been so bad in the past where when Gio Lopez just starts completing some passes, you're like, man, he's playing a lot better tonight. I mean, I think again, it's just an indictment on where this team's been at, and the most important thing moving forward is, as you've said, you just got to find a way to start stacking these wins, man, and find a way to start winning some games. Because right now, I don't know. I mean, I don't see them beating Virginia next week. I just haven't seen enough this season to believe it. But I am probably feeling better now than I was yesterday if you would ask me how that Virginia game might play out. So it's a weird one in a lot of ways.
So when you're talking, I have a bunch of different. By the way, I think whatever that it was maybe a fall or it was down the street or something. They were on.
Good, yeah.
They were actually on the concourse. I'm thinking of a bunch of different things I could say that might be clever to kind of say what kind of movement was made. Like if you start at 0 and you've been at 0 for a long time, if you move to 1, that's tremendous movement compared to where you've been.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like when I lost a lot of weight, when I lost 20 pounds, I lost 20 pounds, you go down a belt size, no one else can see it.
Mm-hmm.
When, like I said earlier about the lottery, you go in there, the lotto is $162 million and you scratch off, but I won $100. I mean, how do you gauge it?
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is we're looking for positives at the very outset of maybe a movement in the right direction. So they're not overwhelmingly positive, but there are some things to sit here. We're not hammering them. I agree with you about Gio. I thought he moved better. He threw a tighter ball. Mm-hmm. He threw a better ball tonight. Some of them were terrible throws. And one of them was a bad throw. They got saved on a PI, but it could have been some miscommunication. It could have been a choice route. I think it was Chris Culliver on that one.
I think so. I know the play you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it was Culliver.
So I do. And there were a couple of times where he didn't have as many really, really awful throws as he's had. And he says he's healthier. There could be something to the period last week during the bye week where there was so much stuff of which we reported a lot of things that only added to the swell of negativity and everything else. And it was accurate what we reported. Maybe that was one of those things where for the kids for a week, the focus went off their poor play and was on something else. And he said, a couple of guys said Bill came in and talked to the team, like, hey guys, I'm paraphrasing big time here. We got us in this room. Mm-hmm. This is it. Nobody else out there. They're on us, and they're trying to tear us down. They're trying to destroy us. They're making up stuff from all over the place. They're doing whatever. They're going for clicks. The world is against you. A lot of times players and teams will say, well, let's shock the world. The world's against us. No, the world really was against them. Mm-hmm. For the most part. The negativity is at a level I've never seen before. I've never seen in my career before. Not even close. Even the Matt, there go the lights to the stadium. Even Matt, remember when I was at NC State during COVID and everything went dark?
Yeah. It's not the first time.
I had to put my light on my phone on to
at least we are towards the end and not just started recording. That would have made it even tougher.
I've got to get my stuff. Anyway, very, very quickly, what was I even saying? I think
you're just talking about the swell of negativity, kind of bringing the team together a little bit, taking things.
So really, none of the arrows were fired at them. They were fired at their head coach. They were fired at Michael Lombardi.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that allowed the kids to exhale some too from a performance standpoint. And look, they're athletes. They don't fully know. A lot of them know some stuff, but they're here to play football. They got a long season ahead. You know, you're not just going to walk away from it. So what are you going to do? You stick around, you fight, you try to win some games.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's where it is. They fell out of the crib tonight. So now they're not in the crib. Next week, do they crawl?
Mm-hmm.
And really, if they beat Virginia, they may have to walk some.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, if they can do that, I mean, again, the vibe around the program, it's amazing how winning can really help things. So we'll see, man. Again, a fumble away from maybe having a very different conversation tonight. Yeah, they really did shut the lights off there, didn't they? Sheesh.
And that reflection, that's my laptop. What reflection? Wow. See right there, whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to get y'all out that stadium. I mean, the game
they are. I gotta
that
get going.
Long ago, really. But
yeah,
I mean,
they're actually going to kick us out soon, so I got to get rolling.
Oh, so I need
to
get rolling.
Drive back to my hotel and
yeah, grind away, man. Yeah, I want to get this up by 5 a.m. and it's about 4:10 right now, so I got my work cut out.
Let's cut it off. I have a 1:30 Pacific flight. I have a direct, which is great. Get home, land about 10:30, home before midnight. 12-hour workday Sunday, and back at it during the week. And like I said, I'll be in Salt Lake City next Friday. So you, I think, are going to do that one, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah. The overlap is officially here. So
Riken's going to do a lot of basketball, and Ellie Bowman, who is on our staff, and she's going to do some basketball ones too.
Yeah, I'm excited to get her in the mix as well. Yeah, I'm excited.
You guys are going to like her. She's good. She's got a future in TV. So she gets started out with us. So she'll be able to tell stories about, man, there was a time I did 3 things with this guy.
It 2 a.m. in the morning. It'll be one of those, I'm sure, during basketball season, especially. There's plenty of late night games that time of year too. But all right, man, we'll go ahead and get out of here. Get involved in the comments, guys. Let us know what you think about the game. You kind of agree with us, and you know, are you feeling pretty positive? And maybe there's some things you can take away to feel good about this team, or you, at the end of the day, just want to see this team finally get some wins. I can understand it from both perspectives.
Would you believe my phone's blowing up?
I appreciate it, guys. Just getting bombarded over there, yeah. Even at 4 a.m., I guess it's only 1:08 a.m. over there in the morning for you, but still, even at 1 a.m. in the morning, AJ's phone's getting blown up.
The press conference and stuff is up. Let me see
okay, beautiful. Yeah, Noah taking care of business, man. You gotta love it. Getting it.
I had a couple people texting me during the game that were watching it, and all of a sudden they stopped. Like it's third quarter, I realized.
Twitter was really quiet tonight. I will say there were a lot of people sleeping. I could tell just from it wasn't as lively.
When Cal scored that touchdown to start the second half, that drive, Twitter died.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought Carolina's chances died too, but they didn't. They fought back. They had a chance, and unfortunately, fumble away from maybe making it happen. But that's
got a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, I know.
There's progress,
man. There's some things you can look at tonight. But again, if you go to Virginia, if you play, Virginia next week, and we're having a similar conversation to the UCF game, then you kind of look back and say, never mind, just a flare up. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Time will tell. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Appreciate y'all sticking with us. And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks.